At some point, the fairy tale starts to feel forced. That's the vibe around Lance Stroll right now. The son of a billionaire, gifted an F1 seat, a team, the best engineers money can buy, yet still can't seem to outrun the giant shadow of his own mediocrity. 27 races in a row without beating Fernando Alonso in qualifying. 27. That's not a slump, that's a pattern. And for a team supposedly aiming to challenge the likes of Red Bull and Ferrari in 2026, that's the kind of baggage you can't afford to carry. But the problem isn't just Lance, it's Lawrence. Because Aston Martin's biggest strength and its most glaring weakness are the same person. The team wouldn't exist in its current form without Lawrence Stroll. He bought it, funded it, rebuilt it. Signed legends like Sebastian Vettel, then Alonso. Pulled off the Honda engine deal, recruited Adrian Newey and a swarm of top-tier talent like Andy Cowell and Enrico Cardile, all for one reason: to turn this project into a championship-winning team by 2026. But at the center of it all sits a driver who, let's be real, wouldn't last 5 minutes in that seat without his dad owning the squad. Lance isn't a terrible driver, he's had moments. A podium in Baku, that wet weather pole in Turkey, yeah, he's had flashes, but that was years ago. And now, when the pressure is higher than ever and the car is slowly transforming into a future championship contender, he's disappearing. Not just in lap times, but in energy, attitude, and presence. Watch him during press conferences, he looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. Listen to him talk about the upcoming 2026 regulations. He's already calling them sad. Not exactly the mindset of someone gearing up to lead a top-tier F1 team. And that's where the real tension lies. Because Alonso, despite being deep into his 40S, is still operating at an elite level. But when he eventually steps away, who's supposed to take the reins? Lance? Really? That's the nightmare scenario no one at Silverstone wants to admit out loud. Internally, they may already know the truth, they just don't want to say it in front of the boss. The frustrating part is that everything else seems to be in place. Adrian Newey's influence is starting to show in the way the car behaves. Honda's return is no small thing, it's a game changer. And the leadership under Cowell is laser focused on the long game. They're not trying to be good in 2025, they're trying to dominate in 2026 and beyond. That's why they've accepted the pain of this season, why they're okay being stuck in the midfield for now. All eyes are on the prize 2 years away, but how do you go into 2026 with a serious championship car and a driver who's still getting out-qualified weekend after weekend? You don't. Not if you're serious. And people like Ralf Schumacher have started saying it out loud. Lawrence has to make the hardest decision of his career and cut his son loose. It's brutal, it's personal, but it might be necessary because the rest of the grid isn't standing still. Ferrari's coming alive, McLaren is already here, Mercedes is reloading, and if Aston Martin enters that war with just one weapon, Alonso, they'll lose. They need 2 dogs in the fight. And right now, Lance isn't even barking. There's a reason people in the paddock whisper about Aston Martin behind closed doors. It's not because of the money or the facilities or even the ambition. It's because of that one seat, the one with Stroll stitched on the back. Everyone knows it's untouchable. Not because of merit, but because of blood. And that makes everything murky. How do you hold a driver accountable when he knows he can't be fired? You can throw all the tech in the world at the problem. Sign the brightest minds, slap on the most powerful engines, build a car with championship bones, but when one of your drivers doesn't respond to those upgrades, when he straight up says he doesn't feel the difference, it makes you wonder if you're pouring all that brilliance into a black hole. That's what happened this season. Alonso felt the changes. He adapted. He evolved with the car. Lance? He said he couldn't tell the difference. That's not a setup issue, that's a disconnect, a fundamental one. And it's not just a mechanical issue, it's mental too. Remember Qatar 2023 or Barcelona this year? The post-qualifying outbursts, the visible frustration, the inability to process back-to-back beatdowns from his teammates. It paints the picture of a guy not only struggling to compete, but struggling to cope. And that's not someone you want steering the ship when things get rough. F1 isn't just about speed. It's about resilience, about bouncing back, about digging deeper. None of that has been on display from Lance lately. Meanwhile, the rest of the field is leveling up. Oscar Piastri is making waves, George Russell is solidifying his place, Lando Norris is sniffing race wins. These aren't just young talents, they're hungry, aggressive, evolving with every race. And in that storm, Lance Stroll feels like a passenger. Not a contender, not a leader, just there. But here's where it gets even messier. Because Aston Martin's current struggle isn't just about driver performance, it's also about optics. The whole thing screams nepotism. No matter how talented Lawrence's hires are, no matter how advanced the car becomes, the second Lance shows up and qualifies 14th while Alonso sticks it on the second row, it becomes a joke, a running punchline. You can't buy credibility in F1, you earn it on Saturdays and Sundays. And right now, that credibility is bleeding out with every qualifying session. It's tragic in a way, because Lance wasn't always like this. Back in his Williams days, there was a spark. That podium in Baku wasn't handed to him. He earned it. There was effort, hunger, a sense that maybe, just maybe, he had the chops to silence the doubters. But the moment his dad took control of the team, something shifted. The pressure disappeared. The urgency vanished. It's like he exhaled and never took another deep breath. Even worse, you get the sense he's just not in love with racing anymore, not truly. He's not obsessed, he's not living for it. That's fatal in a sport like F1. The ones who make it, the real legends, they're wired differently. They wake up thinking about lap time. They go to bed dreaming about breaking points. They can't turn it off. With Lance, it feels like he already has. And that's the part money can't fix. You can't buy obsession. You can't force greatness. You either have it or you don't. Lance Stroll has built something remarkable. From a crumbling Force India to a future-facing Aston Martin factory armed with world-class engineers, wind tunnel upgrades, and the Honda partnership, it's all there, a blueprint for domination. But the final decision he faces isn't about gearboxes or engine mappings, it's about his own son. And the weight of that decision could determine whether Aston Martin becomes a serious title contender or just another midfield team with pretty facility. Ralf Schumacher didn't mince words when he said Lance had to go if the team was serious about winning. Brutal, yes, but also accurate. Lance qualifying defeats aren't just stats, they're warnings. 27 weekends of playing catch-up is more than enough evidence. Imagine being a top engineer, pouring your life into building a faster car, only to see it wasted because one of your drivers isn't delivering. That kills morale, and it creates resentment. How long before people inside the team start questioning the vision, not just the driver? Alonso won't be around forever. When he retires, Aston Martin needs a real contender to step in, not a placeholder. Someone who can extract performance, lead development, and command respect. That's not Lance. It hasn't been for years, and with the 2026 regulation overhaul coming, the timing couldn't be more critical. You want a driver who thrives in chaos, not one who calls the new car sad before they even hit the track. Lance's comments about the upcoming hybrid-era cars felt more like a resignation letter than a challenge. He doesn't want to adapt, he wants the sport to bend back to what he's used to. That's not how F1 works. Talent is one thing, but motivation matters just as much. And watching Lance lately, it's hard to believe he's fighting for anything. He shows up, drives, and leaves. No fire, no grit, just a guy doing a job he can't be fired from. It's no wonder fans have checked out on him. You can't inspire belief when you look like you don't believe in yourself. There are younger drivers itching for a chance. Liam Lawson, Theo Pourchaire, even someone like Yuki Tsunoda, guys who might not be perfect, but who would kill for a car like the one Aston Martin is building. And frankly, even if they're only 5% better than Lance, that 5% matters when you're fighting for podiums and titles. Every 10th counts. Every driver decision counts, and holding on to someone for emotional reasons just isn't sustainable at the top level. It's not about turning on your family, it's about choosing legacy over loyalty. If Lawrence truly wants to cement Aston Martin as a powerhouse, he needs to do what's right for the team, not what's comfortable for his household. The truth is, Lance had more chances than most. He had top-tier teammates, best-in-class resources, and an endless runway to prove himself. But the numbers never lied. The hunger was never there. And now, the future is knocking. The next generation of F1 isn't waiting for anyone. McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, they're all gearing up for a new era. era. If Aston Martin wants to be in that conversation, it's time to make the hardest call of all. Replace Lance. End the safe bubble. Build a team where both drivers are there on merit and merit alone. Because no matter how much money you throw at this sport, success always boils down to the same brutal truth. Talent gets you to the front. Everything else is just PR.